Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Maria Loram and I'm an artist. I make functional ceramics for interior design. In this channel, I share my life as an artist. I talk about ceramics, glazes, and a lot of other fun stuff. This video is about how to move on from commercial glazes and begin to test and make your own glazes. Personally, for me, it's a very important topic because when I first started ceramics several years ago, I did not like any of the commercial glazes that were available on the market, and I struggled. The solutions that I came up with was just not glazing the bases at all. So just using the raw clay as is, which is really beautiful, but feels a little bit limiting. I found maybe one white mat, one black mat that I really enjoyed, but that was it. And it might be different for other ceramics people because there is a lot of really beautiful glazes out there. The main problem for me was that my specific aesthetics and my vision did not match whatever I saw on the market online. It was either very, very bright colors that did not fit my aesthetics, or it was very shiny, polished, melty, traditional glaze. Trigger alert, I do not like traditional glazes. I am not a huge fan of Temoku, Shino, and clear. Sorry. I do like textured glazes. Here are some of the examples of the glazes that I make and that I enjoy. Lavas, scrolls, matte glazes, all the different combinations with different aggregates. That's my thing. Basically, whatever conveys this natural, earthy, rich texture, that's what I enjoy. So I was looking for something that I found on Pinterest, those beautiful wabi-sabi textured tones and glazes, and I just couldn't find anything. So eventually, I realized that unless I learn how to mix my own glazes, I'm just going to spend so much money and I'm not going to find anything that I enjoy. So I basically had to do it out of necessity rather than out of curiosity. But then it led me to a big rabbit hole of curiosity where I'm currently in. And I continue to explore, I continue to develop my own glazes. It's really just an infinite field of opportunities and fun. And so in this video, I wanted to share my journey of how I started with glazes, as well as recommend a few very, very easy steps of how you can get started as well. As I mentioned, basically, whenever I came to community studio, to community college studio, I looked at the variety of glazes that they had, and I ended up using maybe one or two. So basically, everything was kind of a waste. If I went there, I just couldn't even use their glazes. When I got commercial glazes, that was kind of a similar thing. I would fire birch by Mako or any other glaze, and it would come out glossy instead of matte, even if it said matte on the description of the glaze. So I just wasn't satisfied because I kept ruining my pieces. Back then, I didn't know that testing exists, so I didn't know that I could actually test my glazes before I apply them to the surfaces. However, the problem is I can't test all the glazes that are commercial glazes on my stoneware unless I buy those glazes, and that's a wasted few $100s. Instead, what happened at some point, I remember walking into the studio. I took community college classes, and I saw a girl mixing oxides into the clay bodies, and I was so excited because she was mixing the powders. And so I thought that, oh, maybe if I reach the fourth level of community college classes, I would be able to do glaze calculation. But turned out that no, there is no such program, so I could not actually study glaze calculation. There is one community college, Glendale Community College in LA, where there is a glaze calculation course. From what I know, it's kind of irregular, and sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. There's also some prerequisites. So basically, those things exist out there, but you have to catch them. How detailed, how informative, how in-depth those courses are, I do not know. And so I looked at that course and I realized that, oh, I can't just go ahead and take it. I ended up getting a few books from the library on glazes and started skimming through them and failed. I failed. I have chemistry background, I have math background, I have science background. I've been tutoring chemistry and physics for forever to little kids and to high schoolers. But even with that, when I opened the textbook and I looked at all of those different materials, there's 50 different materials that are separated into categories that are split into different characteristics. When I looked at it, I just could not comprehend anything. And if you've never looked at those ingredients, the names are very fun even. They sound like magic spells, like methylene cyanide, magnesium carbonate, silicon carbide. There's like all those different materials. But when it's the first time ever and you look at them, it feels overwhelming for sure. It feels like you have no idea what you're getting into. Obviously, you're creating a new material from scratch without even knowing what's going on. And you have to memorize all of this. I looked at this and it said, oh, flux, that kind of flux, that kind of flux, glass former. There's so many different terms that I got lost. Because I got lost, I asked on a Facebook pottery group of how can I learn my own glazes? How can I start testing? And not a lot of people responded, but some people recommended a couple of courses. Most of the people said that, oh, don't even try. It's like a lot of science. It's very difficult. Like, it's not worth it. Just get commercial glazes. I'm telling you, it's absolutely worth it. It's a lot of fun. Yes, it's a routine that you have to establish. It's a monotonous process. You have to like some parts of it, and probably you're going to hate some other parts of it. But all in all, this excitement of being able to try so many different options, for me, because I am driven by curiosity, for me, it's a huge, huge advantage over commercial glazes. So some of the people highly recommended Matt Katz and his ceramic materials workshop. So I took it. I took the Understanding Glazes and I took Advancing Glazes. And after both of them, I feel like I can say that, yes, I am confident enough to actually go ahead and test my own glazes and, even teach glazes after some amount of failures and practice for sure. So the first recommendation that I would give if you wanted to learn how to make your own glazes, how to mix your own glazes, is educate yourself. Whichever way is the most accessible, the most out there. It might be free videos by John Britt. It might be a whole course by Matt Katz. It might be my course, which is a very condensed version of everything that I've learned about glazes. The most basic stuff about the UMF, the style chart, Glazes, that you need to know to begin testing, begin mixing, and begin modifying the glazes. Maybe it's the books by Linda Bloomfield, Science for Potters. Maybe it's some other textbooks. There's a lot of different books on glazes. Unfortunately, a lot of the books just have the recipes and not that much scientific explanation. And I feel like understanding the very basics, kind of at least what the glaze is, what are the parts of the glaze, that gives you the ability to understand the language of those books. That gives you the ability then to begin practicing this language. It's a good metaphor about the language. I think that there are some people who go out there and go to the country and begin speaking. They just kind of like talk to this person, talk to that person, pick up a few words, and all of a sudden they speak a language just using 10 words. I'm actually a linguist myself, so I learned a bunch of languages and I majored computational linguistics back when I was in Moscow. So my approach to linguistics, to languages, and to glazes is that I learn the grammar, I learn every single thing that I need to know, and then on top of that, I'm able to then construct the sentences, I'm able to speak, I'm able to communicate. There are different approaches, and this is one of them. My recommendation would be to spend a couple of hours just understanding the very basic things. How does the glaze melt? Why glaze melts? Why do you need this and this and this material? You don't have to go really deep. You just need to know approximately what the glaze is made of, what kind of chemistry is behind, is probably for the future. But what you need to know is that there's glass formers like silica and boron sources, there's alumina, and there are different kinds of fluxes. That's it. That's basically what you need to know. Now you need to go ahead and learn which materials belong to which group and maybe to check some differences. But even that is not important for the very, very first attempt of mixing your own glaze. There are definitely levels of understanding glazes. There are definitely levels of how deep you can go. You might just learn a few materials. You might not even learn any materials. You might just take a recipe, mix it, see what happens, and then ask your friend for a recipe, mix it, see what happens. There is then the next level that's just like basic understanding of what's happening, and then everything else is based on your own experience testing and analyzing the test styles. Then there is a much deeper level where you understand all the chemistry behind crystallography, phase diagrams and other things, and you understand the differences of that engineering aspect of ceramics. And that's a completely different level. There might be even a deeper level where you take the microscope and take pictures with hand microscope of cut of how the glaze looks like on the inside. You choose your level. You don't need to go that deep. You might be driven by curiosity later on, but to begin with, you don't need any of this. All you need to do is to just spend an hour researching, just getting like very, very basic information of what the glaze is. It might be, again, a course by Matt Katz. It might be free online lectures by John Britt, although Matt Katz's course is very long and very in-depth. John Britt's lectures are also quite in-depth. The main problem with both for me is that in the beginning, if I've never ever learned anything about glazes, they might feel overwhelming, especially John Britt's videos. Now that I watch them, I feel like they're amazing. They give so much information. He's very structured, very organized, very nice guy. But when I first started, I just was overwhelmed by the amount of information, and I just couldn't comprehend it. I thought that, okay, I have to go really, really deep into it to be able to at least understand the basics. So if you're getting overwhelmed, just know that it's okay. There's a lot of chemistry going on, but that you don't need to know that much to get started. What you actually need to do to get started is step number 2. And step number 2 is to go on Glazes.org or any glaze book and find the recipes that you like to try. Those might be matte glazes, glossy glazes, any kinds of glazes. The more pictures the recipe has, the more people have done it and have tried it, the more likely it is that this glaze is going to work out the way you expect. Very often, the glazes do not work out the way that we see them on the pictures on Glazier or anywhere else, because there's so many variables that are involved in making glazes that we just cannot control for all of them, first of all, and also people just don't tell what those variables are. For example, nobody includes water into the glaze recipe, while I think they should, because water could alter your glaze completely. So imagine that you have 100 grams of raw powder of raw ingredients, and then you have 60 grams of water, you're going to get one result. If you get 100 grams of water, you're going to get completely different result because of how thick your glaze is going to be on the textile or on the actual piece. Water-specific gravity, the application technique, the thickness, the firing temperature, firing schedule, there's just clay body. There's just so many different things that might affect the result that whenever you look on the photo on Glazes.org and then you look at the result, it's okay if it comes out not exactly as whatever you found. So just be prepared that if you find a glaze recipe that has a lot of reviews, a lot of photos, then it's more likely to come out to be whatever you see in the picture. The fewer reviews, the more likely it is that it's just one person trying out this recipe, and that's what they got. And you might not get exactly the same stuff. I do feel like the best recipes people keep to themselves, not only because it's a lot of work and a lot of research, but also because those people perfected those recipes for specific conditions of how they fire. It's the specific materials of their country, it's specific proportions, obviously, that's what the glaze recipe is, specific amount of water, specific thickness, specific firing. It might be that only on that shelf, that middle shelf, where the glaze come out to be this way. So if you see beautiful piece and this master is using this glaze, it doesn't mean that if they give you that recipe, you're going to get exactly the same result. So it's totally fine. And that's one of the reasons why you cannot find the best glazes online, because they're very site-specific, let's say. And also they're trade secrets and kind of unique to all artists. So I think it's totally normal to that artist who wants to develop their own glazes and not share them. Step number 2, go to Glazy, go to any textbook and find 5 or 10 recipes that you'd like to try yourself. Once you find those recipes, the easier the recipe is, the better. So if the recipe has 4 or 5 ingredients, maximum 6 with colorants, and we can talk about it later what those are, the better, because it's going to be much easier for you to mix it. There's going to be much easier for you to modify it. There's just like a lot of really good advantages of taking a simple recipe. Also, if you're looking for several recipes at once, then I'd recommend you to check that they have materials that are available in your country so that the recipe is written in your language, because there are some Russian recipes, German, Finnish recipes, and they're specified to that country. So it's possible that the materials that are in the recipe are just not available in your country if that's a recipe from a different country. The other thing to pay attention to is that the recipes that you're picking, if they have the same ingredients or at least some repetitive ingredients like the EPK or silica or flint or nepheline cyanide, that would be just a lot easier for you because you would have to buy a lot fewer ingredients to begin with. Obviously, later you might expand and you might go full on and get like every single ingredient that you want to try. But to begin with, 6 to 10 ingredients might be enough in general so that you don't get overwhelmed. Once you piled up those recipes, once you have them all kind of aligned in front of you, you need to go and get those ingredients. Where are you going to get it? It doesn't matter as much as long as you find them online or in person. In LA and in California, it's pretty easy because I live not too far, like an hour away from Laguna, an hour away from Aardvark. So I have options that I can actually go and buy this in person. You can also get it online. Just beware that there's obviously going to be a shipping fee because those do get sold by weight. You don't need that many of each ingredient because very likely your very first glaze is only going to weigh about 100 grams. So you need a maximum of a half a pound of each ingredient, maybe a pound. But sometimes there are restrictions and limitations. Sometimes the minimum you can get is 5 pounds or 10 pounds. And if you're not yet sure whether you want to mix a glaze or not, I would probably not go for that much. I would go for the minimum that there is really, because your job right now is just to get started, give it a go, and then maybe potentially in the future, you're going to go and find this 15-pound bag or 50-pound bag of the material. But for now, just get the minimum that's available. You can search online how the recipes work and to check how much of each ingredient you need to have, but you wouldn't be able to get like exactly that amount anyway, because again, there is some kind of restriction of the minimum of the material that you can get, and normally it's at least half a pound unless you're getting stains or some really expensive crazy shit like lithium. So you go online, you find those ingredients, you add them to your cart, and then you're basically ready to go. You click checkout, you pay $100 or so for those, and that's your first glaze. Well, you could have gotten it for $15 in a jar from Mako. But long term, it's a lot more fun and a lot cheaper because you're buying dry ingredients. So as a result, you're getting actually 2 times more of that because you're going to add water to it. So you need your ingredients, you need your tools. Out of the tools, you don't really need that much. You need a container, you need something to mix. Ideally, you need something to sieve the glaze through, but it could be just like a regular kitchen sieve. And of course, you need a protection gear, a mask, an apron, gloves, and eye goggles. All of that is important because we cannot ingest, we cannot inhale those ingredients. That's actual raw chemicals. So we don't want them in our body. Our body is likely wouldn't be able to, process those ingredients. So be very, very careful, and for sure Google how to take care of your body while you're mixing the glazes. A lot of people ignore those things, and it's kind of their choice, but you need to know at least the risks of what could happen if you're using those ingredients and if they're raw in your hands and in your nose. So you educated yourself, you found the recipes, you got everything you need. Now the job is just to test the recipe. All you need to do is to create a test tile or get some kind of an object, a piece that you made that you don't care about, or maybe a flat test tile that will be standing vertically or in whichever way that you would intend to use this glaze later. It might be that you're only using it on horizontal surfaces, then just test it horizontally. Made out of the clay body that you're intending to use, you're mixing the glaze. And again, you can Google, there's a lot of videos out there of how to mix the glaze. It's not very complicated. It's literally just measuring the ingredients one by one. Whatever you see in the recipe normally is measured in grams. Normally it would add up to 100. So you take each ingredient, you measure it, you put it into a container, and then you pour some water in it, you mix it really well, you sieve it through, And then that's it. You got the glaze mixed. Congratulations. Now you just need to dip your textile into this glaze, dip your object into this glaze, send it into the kiln, and enjoy your very, very first glaze. That's it, really. And then after that, you decide, did you like the process? How's it? Actually, no, you don't decide. You try it 5 or 10 more times, and then you see, do you like the process? Do you enjoy it? What other kind of knowledge would you benefit from? Maybe it's a little bit more chemistry. Maybe it's a little bit more techniques of how you can modify it, how can you add color to it, how you can change the texture from glossy to matte, how you can add bubbles or crawling textures or anything else. And then you decide, yeah, how far are you willing to go? How far do you want to go? Is it that you need this one specific glaze that you're looking for and you're willing to learn a lot and test a lot to get to this glaze? Is it just your curiosity that, oh, you want to explore the wide variety of glazes and you want to try all the different things? Those goals are all out there. They're all totally normal. And I think the more you do it, the more you understand what you're driven by. I ended up being a big fan of just testing and seeing what glazes are and what they're capable of. I'm really hoping to deepen my knowledge of different fluxes and how they affect my glazes. I have focused on 1 or 2 glazes myself, and it's just really cool. I feel like I have this scientifically as well as aesthetically motivated curiosity of exploring glazes. Of course, I do create wonderful objects too. A lot of those objects are made by applying my test glazes on top of the surfaces, but I'm slowly building a toolkit of my favorite glazes, including lavas and crawls and mud glazes too. So good luck. It is a really fun process. I do feel very, very powerful after I've learned how to do it. I feel like it's just such a cool thing that an artist is also a creator of the material too. I think it gives a potter and a ceramic artist this empowerment and connection to the material that nothing else can give, really. I mean, when you're creating, you're digging this material out of the ground and then you're mixing it and you're creating an entirely new material that no one ever seen before in this specific variation. That feels really good, for sure. And that feels empowering, and that just feels like the art reaches a completely different level as a result. That's it for this video. I hope it was a little bit informative, a little bit motivational, and that you're at least one step closer to either making your own glazes or going and testing that test batch that you wanted to test for so long. But now you watched my video and you're like, all right, okay, I gotta go and make this line blend or whatever. And don't forget to like my video, subscribe to my channel. It's a new channel, but I'm super excited about it, and I'm very curious of where it's gonna go. And it's gonna go somewhere only if you guys are here and watching me. So thank you so much, and stay tuned. Good luck glazing.